This is the only NBA parlay strategy that works. It hits 80% of the time, and I'm going to show you in this video how to find it. And make sure you guys stick to the end so you know exactly what websites to use to find the information that I'm going to teach you. Now, if you guys enjoy these videos, please do me a favor and smash that like button because it helps get it out there to plenty of people to be able to see exactly what it's like to actually beat the books so we can always win. Now, let's go ahead and break down exactly what parlay strategy actually works in the NBA. Because most of the time people put in parlays, they lose. But there is a way where you can actually win. And I'm going to show you that. All right, so let's get down to what the first thing we're going to look for is. We want to identify the dominant player on the team. So that means the number one option. Okay, number one option on the team, that means they're the ones that control pretty much the offense and it runs through them. So for example, we're going to talk about players like LeBron, obviously. I mean, maybe not right now, ish, but players like LeBron, Giannis, who else? We got Jokic, players like that, okay? Your number one options on the team, the offense is going to run through them. That's what we want to focus on first. So on any given day, make a list of the number one players on that team. Now, if you're new to the NBA and you don't quite know, who the number one players are, all you have to do is be able to look up the usage rate, all right? So usage rate percentage on the team. So, and I'm going to show you a little bit later on how you could find exactly what the usage rate is, but that is what you want to look for. The players that have the highest usage rate are going to be your number one players on the team. Now, once you have identified the correct players and you have a list of players, the next thing we're going to look at here is fantasy points. Okay? Fantasy points allowed. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be correlating fantasy points to what they're actually doing on the court for their points, rebounds, and assists. All right, so your fantasy points are going to correlate of your points, rebounds, and assists. Okay, we're going to be looking at that one player for their fantasy points allowed, the defense that they're going against. Okay, so the defense that they're going against should be in the bottom five in fantasy points allowed per their position, not overall, but per their position. All right, so if Jokic, for example, is one that we're looking at, the fantasy points allowed for the defense needs to be bottom five versus centers, right? Because Jokic is a center. So that is where you need to be able to look. You need to make sure that they are giving up plenty of points to centers that are in the bottom of the five if we're looking at a center. Now, same thing goes for, Giannis, LeBron. Giannis could be a power forward sometimes, so we look at power forward. LeBron, small forward, sometimes maybe play power forward, so we need to look at the forward position for fantasy points allowed per that position. Make sure, once again, it's in the bottom five. Okay, we want teams that give up plenty of points to the position of that number one player on that team. Now, number three, we're going to take that player and we're going to look at a same game parlay. All right, same game parlay, which is what? The SGP. That's what we're looking at here. Okay, we're looking at a same game parlay with the one player. Now, I'm going to show you guys why this makes sense in just a second, because you're probably looking at it and thinking that maybe we're going to do parlays, putting teams together, whatnot. We don't need to do that. We need to focus on one player, and he needs to do a couple things for us in order to make this happen. Now, for that same game parlay, we're going to focus on their points, their rebounds, and their assists. Individually, their individual stats for points, rebounds, and assists for that one player. So, for example, we've been using Jokic as an example. We're going to use that again. All right, we're going to say that he has that great matchup, and we're looking at a same game parlay for his points, rebounds, and assists individually. Now, the numbers that we want to take for his points, rebounds, and assists individually need to have a 90% win rate against the similar defenses that are in that bottom five that he's going against, okay? So as long as he plays very good against those bottom five defenses that allow the most fantasy points to centers, we're going to look at his individual stats for there, and the ones that hit 90% or higher, because sometimes they could be even higher, we're going to mark down. We need to make sure that that's the number that we're hitting in each category. So for example here, if you're looking at a same game parlay, what that's going to look like is your points, okay? Let's say Jokic hits 90% of the time, he clears 15 plus points. Okay? Then his rebounds, let's say 90% of the time, he clears 7 plus rebounds. And then in the assist category, let's say 90% of the time, he's able to clear 5 assists. So this is what you're going to look like. Your same game parlay is going to look like this. It's going to look like he needs to score at least 15 points, he needs to get 7+ rebounds, and he needs to get 5+ assists. Now he hits this at a 90% rate in each category, correct? Because if you go and look at his averages, let's just ballpark his averages here. He averages almost a triple-double, okay? So he's averaging anywhere between 20+, 10+, and 10+, all right? So we have a tremendous advantage for him to just play mediocre, and he probably should still be able to hit these numbers. Now the odds that you're going to get individually on these stats are going to vary. They're going to be different. But this is the regulation that you need to be able to hit this long term and actually make money doing this long term. So when you mash all of these together, okay, your implied probability for this is going to be about 73%. So you need your odds, when you put these together, your same game parlay odds need to be below -260. Okay, they have to be below -260 to give you a plus edge. If they give you a plus edge long term, you'll be able to do this with one player almost every single day, and you're going to come out on top, okay? Because you're going to make money because you're playing a plus edge on a same game parlay that literally all they have to do is play mediocre. I mean, just think, when you look at these numbers right here, even when he's playing against the best team in the NBA defensively, he still sometimes can reach these numbers. So imagine when he's playing somebody that isn't that good, that doesn't guard the center position well, he's probably easily going to surpass this. And most of the time, they'll surpass this within like 3 quarters. All right, so it won't be no sweat whatsoever. So think about that now. You're going to put in a same game parlay bet that there actually is no sweat to, and you actually win rather than all these outrageous parlays that everybody else puts in and they never have a shot at winning. Now, if you guys want to bypass all this information and you don't want to do it yourself and you just want it done for you, all you guys got to do is click the link in the description, and I post the plays that fit these criteria every single day. Now, let's talk about the websites that you need to find this information. All right, so usage rate. Usage rate you need because if you don't know who the #1 is on the team, and sometimes you might think you know, but if you look at usage rate, it speaks another language there. So for usage rate, the best way to look at that is to go to Roto Grinders. Okay, Roto Grinders is a paid website, but it's very vital when you're doing any type of props. Like, it's very useful to use. Okay, but on there you'll be able to find the usage rate, and that is under lineup HQ on Roto Grinders. You're able to find the usage rate on there. All right, it'll be labeled as USG percentage. So it's that easy to find that. All right, now for fantasy points allowed. All right, so the fantasy points allowed per position, what you're going to use for there is going to be called Fantasy Pros. All right, there I think you just got to put your email in and you're able to see all the information. But you'll go to Fantasy Pros and you just got to put in the section that has NBA points allowed. All right, and it's going to pop up and you're going to be able to filter exactly through each position on what it is that literally they give up per position fantasy points wise. All right, you're able to see exactly who the worst and who the best is and everybody in between. So those are the websites that you have to access to be able to grab that information. All right, Fantasy Pros right here. All right, so once you have that information and you have these websites down, guess what? Now you can actually place a parlay that is actually going to make you money long term.